instead of just, where's the grass greener? I'm gonna go there.
Like, if you don't want to fight, shut the fuck up. If you don't want to fight, do it both. That's all.
What is going on, Florida State family, Seminole Nation, in the 863 tribe? Is your boy Polk, a.k.a. A-Lo, a.k.a. the Got Damn, Truth, episode 120. It's been 120 episodes. I feel like there should be so many more episodes of this. We're on episode 120 of The Hangover. The second scrimmage has happened. Usman Kroma is a man-child, or is FSU's defense just trash? We'll talk about that. But to start off tonight's show, we're going to talk about CONRAD HUSSEY and his departure from the team. As always, man, hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Y'all already know the deal. Pay the bills. You're over here on the most interactive show for the Florida State football fan, 863 Seminole TV. Another hot day in El Paso, Texas. But we're close to football season, man. We're in the month of August. We are, like 2 weeks away from football. Can't wait. The season's coming. Florida State football is coming. For better or worse, we'll find out. But let's talk about all this stuff, man. But before we get into everything, again, y'all pay the bills, and then y'all get in that comment section so we can get this roll call, hit this quick roll call, get into these conversation pieces, and get up out of here tonight, like we always do. So y'all go ahead and do that. Get in the comments, again, share, like, subscribe, share. And I hope y'all having a good, what's today, Tuesday? A good Tuesday. And yeah, man. We got some interesting stuff to talk about. So I'm not gonna waste too much more time. I'm gonna let a few more comments hit that chat, and then we're gonna hit a quick roll call. And as you guys know, as you come in, just get in the comments, and I'll shout you out as you come on in. And then we're gonna start off with CONRAD HUSSEY, go into Kroma, and then probably end on the scrimmage, man. Bama's around the corner. Bama is around the corner. And Florida State football is we're going to find out, right, man? We're going to find out what that team is looking like. But let's hit a roll call, man. I'm not going to waste too much time. We're going to get in here because I want to get in the conversation. I want to talk about this stuff. I think this was a good week of information coming out. Tyler Hedden in the building says go Noles. Vontae B, go Noles. Brandon Brazier, my boy, what's good? Vibes, what's up? Michael Adams says what's up? Kusami, yo. Terrell Thomas, what's up? My man Jeff said what's up? Go Noles. Jason, what up? Go Noles. Jay Adams, yo. Devon Pond Dexter. I'm outside the building, but I'm in here. Let's go. I got Vontae already. Almighty in the building. What up, Polk? Is it true that HUSSEY, he's done playing for Florida State? I don't know if he's done playing, but he is no longer on the football team. Confirmed. Kenny Ken, what up, family? William McKinnon, farewell, HUSSEY. Mile High City, baby, 303. Hell yeah, go Noles, Polk. Thanks again for your service and sacrifice, sir. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I really do. KCS should have been Shaheen. Well, might not be done. We'll talk about that. Lewis, not feeling great about the squad. Shout out to Lewis. And Tribal War says, Polk, what's up, Tribal War? CONRAD HUSSEY has been, what we know, or what has been reported, right? I can only go by what's been reported, is that he's no longer on the team. I don't know if he was dismissed. I don't know if he walked away on his own free will. I'm not sure how that conversation uh, essentially took place. But Conrad Hussey is no longer a Florida State Seminole. Um, it's unfortunate. I was on Twitter basically saying like it's unfortunate that a young player who showed some promise, and I know he only really had the one big hit against Virginia Tech, but I mean, as a freshman, right, showed flashes. Had a very terrible, but everybody had a terrible uh, last season. Had a very terrible sophomore season, and if you remember, there was a stint in last season where he was almost off the team. I Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure there's a couple games where I don't even think he traveled. I know for sure there was a few games where he didn't get any playing time on a team that was 2-10, by the way. So they probably could have used all the bit of playing time he had. There was some talks that he just wasn't on the same page with the coaches, like he was in the doghouse. And a lot of people, myself included, kind of thought, well, if that's the case, this is a guy that probably hits the portal at the end of the season. Well, he stuck through that. When he survived the transfer portal, I was of the opinion, okay, this is a guy that's going to compete to start. Whatever was the situation that happened last year, whatever that was, he worked through it, got on the, I guess, the right side of the track, so to speak, and was looking to bounce back. Well, he doesn't even make it to the first game. About 2 weeks before, you got Bama coming up, he is off the team. In the grand scheme, what does it mean? You could kind of see this coming from the stand, not only from last year, right? As we reference what happened to them last year, what happened to him last year. You listen to Tony White. You listen to Tony White's interview. By the way, man, you got to listen to that man talk ball because he doesn't hold punches, and I love it. I love the fact that he comes out there and says people need to play better. Well, this might have been one of the guys he was talking about. So when you look at James Timmons was good. When you look at the situation, Tony's been naming players. One of the names he surprised me with on his interview this week, he mentioned, I forget what the exact question was, but he mentioned, of course, Earl Little. Earl Little's been getting a lot of praise this offseason. He will be he's the rover, which essentially he's one of the starting safeties. But the other two names he mentioned competing for that other spot was KJ, and he referenced AB. Now, I was like, AB, who the hell is AB? Then I had to think about it. Ashton Barker. Oh, Ashton Barker. That's got to be AB. When I heard AB in Kirkland, I was like, oh, man. Well, I knew Shaheen had been pretty much relegated to second team, so there wasn't a surprise that I didn't hear Shaheen's name, as he's been trending downward since Tony White has essentially got there. For whatever reason, we can speculate on that. I didn't expect HUSSEY. A couple days later, after the Tony Ella interview, I believe Tony's interview, I think, was yesterday, actually. Yeah, because it's Tuesday. Monday, Sunday, they have the scrimmage. Mike Norvell's interview dropped Sunday night. Yesterday, you get Gus, you get Tony. Today, you got some players. And then the news of Conrad Hussey. It's unfortunate. I'm not, you guys kind of know how I am. As a plane decides wants to take off, so you probably hear that rumbling in the back. Sounds like a damn space shuttle. So I'm trying to wait for it to pass. While I wait for it to pass, James Timmons says, what's up, Polk? Glad to see my boy. Lakeland Ford in the building, 863 all day. Defensive coach talk no nonsense. Absolutely. Mr. H was good. He says, I read a thread that Coach White called him out because of his lack of effort, and he didn't like it. You can see the writing on the wall, sinking on the depth chart. There you go. And the plane made me lose my train of thought or where I was going with that. But we'll try to pick it back up. It might come back to me. Anyway, Tony White, he's mentioning players. We don't hear Conrad Hussey. And again, now my train of thought is back on. This is what I was about to say. You know how I kind of am when these players leave. There are players that you kind of expect to leave. And then there are kind of players like that even if you expect them to leave, you had such high hopes for them. I think Conrad Hussey fits into that book where, am I shocked? At this point, I'm kind of shocked just because we're so close to the season. And you got to ask Conrad Hussey, like, if he chose to walk away, where are you going to go? 2 weeks before season and have played. You know, you like what are you going to sit out a year? What are you going to do? Because this is very late in the year to be leaving. Um, but I'm not a I don't like it when we go all good riddance or I'm 100% okay with the next man up mentality, and I'm 100% okay with what Tony White's got going on. If you ain't getting it done, hey, next man up, I'm all about that. And I'm not saying that Florida State is wrong necessarily for if that was a conversation and a mutual departure happened. I'm not totally against if Conrad Hussey made the decision, though I think that's a very spur of the moment decision this close to the season. I feel like you're kind of throwing a year away, but him and his camp, I guess, made that decision. What I don't like is us as the fans, again, and you can have your opinion. I'm not telling anybody what opinion they should or should not have. I just don't like this whole good riddance type of vibe, or this, oh, he was trash anyways. Like, and then get it, did not have a great sophomore campaign. I'm not going to sit here and pretend he did. Flashed as a freshman, didn't have a great sophomore campaign. You were thinking maybe with the new coach, new position coach, new defensive coordinator, new scheme, he could maybe do some things. Well, didn't pan out. Now he's gone. Wish him the best. Hope he finds a landing spot. I still think he's a kid with potential. I still think he has a bright future if he can, for whatever reason, whether it's he didn't like to be coached hard or whatever, if he can put his pride to the side and get coached up and do the things necessary to get on the football field, I wish him all the best. I do. I'm just not a fan of every time we lose a guy, we pretend like, oh, we didn't need him anyway. Now, if there's one position group that you could take a L at, is that secondary. I think we have numbers there. We talked about Earl, AB, KJ. We ain't even mentioned a guy like Ricky Knight. They got some other guys, freshmen, whether it's Arno, whether it's some of the other, like they got some other guys. Kai Bates, I believe under Fuller, he was recruited as a safety. He's probably more of a corner, but you have some tweener DBs that you could mix and match places. So it's not a position group that I am like, scared to death of. If this was a D lineman, I'd be like, oh hell. Like if this was Daniel Lyons, his name hasn't been mentioned much either. Maybe on the lookout for that. I might be a little bit more nervous because that's a guy that, whether or not, I don't know how he's performing. His name hasn't been mentioned much, but he's a guy that I think you need for some depth purposes, right? So again, I get it. Everybody's gonna have their opinion on Conrad, justly so, and you're 100% free to have that opinion. I'm not a fan of the good like the whole good riddance talk. I don't see the purpose of it. Stop pretending like I get it. He's no longer a Florida State Seminole, so therefore you have no allegiance. Understandable, but don't pretend like you wasn't hyping this kid up after his freshman year, because most of us were. So that's kind of my take on the Conrad Hussey situation. Feel free to give your takes in the chat. As far as I'm concerned, though, it is next man up, and I am 100% okay. I love what Tony White's preaching. If you don't do what he's telling you to do and asking you to do, you will not play. I'm okay with that. No problem with that. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, if you can't take that kind of coaching and your best solution to that is, I'm going to leave, then maybe Florida State's not the place for you. And that's fine, and that's dandy, and all of that deserves to be said. Just wish the man on his best. Hope he finds a landing spot. Again, it's pretty late in the process to, I think, be trying to find a spot. But he may very well be able to find a spot. I don't know. As another rocket ship takes off. 1 second, guys. I'll be right back. Let me turn this light on. It's getting Getting kind of dark. All right, better lighting. There we go. So yeah, let's see what y'all talking about in the chat. What's y'all's thoughts on some of that stuff? KCS says Tony helping free up some 2026 NIL dollars. I'm sure Ingram decided he's not having to deal out dollars for some bad attitudes. Lewis says there's been too many good riddance. Now that is a different conversation, but that is a good point. Since we're on the CONRAD HUSSEY situation, and I'm not trying to go like, okay, we got a new season we need to look forward to. We need to be excited about that. But some of this stuff has to be addressed. And this is why I said a week or 2 weeks ago, I've been very adamant about you've recruited well at DB. I mean, Charles Lester, I think was a top 100 guy. Kai Bates was I believe also a top 100 guy. If he wasn't top 100, he was definitely close, top 150. Jamari Howard, another top 4-star. At some point, man, these 4-stars got to start hitting. And there's been too many, whether it's high key, like, give me a name of a high-profile recruit that has actually hit for Mike Norvell. Because the only one I can think of is AZ. Hakeem, Luke, Cam's looking like we give him a chance. I mean, who are some other, like, Mike Norvell's, it's been too, I like the way you put it. It's been too many good riddance under this staff. You don't recruit at a clip. Mike Norvell doesn't recruit at a clip that you can go good riddance, in my opinion. So you have to hit on these guys that you get. You have to hit on Charles Lester and these guys because you don't recruit maybe at DB. Right? DB is the one position where it's like, okay. But for instance, Hakeem, Dustin Hill, those are two of Mike Norvell's bigger wide receiver commits. No longer on the team. Every quarterback this man's recruited isn't no longer on the team with the exception of Brock Glenn. Like, I think that's a valid point, Lewis. I really do. Mr. H says, I couldn't agree more with that. What you just said. That's one of the biggest reasons that NC on Instagram cuts the comments off whenever he posts news of players' departures from a team. He says, Tony reminds him of Mickey. Tony White is going to play the best players. It don't matter if they're a junior, senior, or freshman. And if you don't think you can play, he's going to tell you. I agree with that, Jeff. 100. Blake was a 4-star. He's yet to hit. We'll see, right? But you're right. Blake's another, at a time where we weren't recruiting any good linebackers, Blake's been the best linebacker recruit we've had probably since Deloach. I think Deloach was a 4-star. Or Steven Dix. Somewhere around, like, Blake's been the best linebacker recruit since then. And we're going to talk about Blake a little bit because Blake made the waves this week for the wrong reasons. I know y'all have seen the clip. And I agree, Dupree. You can't afford a DB. I don't disagree on that. That's the one thing about CONRAD HUSSEY's dismissal is I'm not worried about it from the standpoint of you have bodies in that room. I think they'll be fine. So I 100% agree. In my opinion, unless Tony asked Norvell to keep all defensive players that wanted to stay until he could evaluate them, Norvell isn't actually doing his job. This isn't Hussey based, just team based. Do I think DJU will make the Chargers roster? I hope he does. That's the best thing I can say. I don't hope he doesn't. Do I think he will? I mean, I think he had. I did see the one pass, which was better than any pass he threw for us, but it was just one pass at the end of a preseason game. Maybe get a little bit of a bigger sample size of DJU before we make that assessment. What's up, DC Dread? Nose 850. What's good? Found out today that Pat Payton is not a starter. Seems like, well, yes, 100%. Need to start hitting on these blue chips. Yeah, I don't think Pat or Destin are starting, which I didn't expect Destin to start at LSU. They've become the modern day wide receiver U. That's just kind of like a fact. That's an unfortunate look for Pat Payton, though. I really hope Kroma is just that good. And yeah, we'll talk about. Speaking of Kroma, let's get into the Kroma talk. Y'all see the clip? Have y'all seen the clip? Not sure what drill they're running. But Kroma meets Blake Nicholson at the point of contact, wham. And then he proceeds to put Blake Nicholson, if this was basketball, he'd be on a poster. If this was boxing, he'd be at least an 8 count. he puts his, for lack of a better term, dick in the dirt and just continues to look like the man-child that he's been boosted up to be. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, obviously to highlight Kroma, but there's been some conversations, and I don't agree with them. So, but it's fun to address them, and then we can get people's takes, other people's takes. There's been questions on, is that a bad sign, or is that a good sign? And my stance on it, meaning, is Kroma doing that to, I believe Blake's a junior, is a freshman doing that to a junior linebacker, a good sign that Kroma is just that dude, or a bad sign that Blake's, not only is Blake not it, but the defense isn't as good as we're hoping? This is what I would say to that. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it both ways. You can't come in as another rocket ship takes off in the background. You can't come in and call Kroma the second coming of Adrian Peterson or whoever you want to build him as, and then at the same time say, this defense sucks. Right? Because I'm seeing a lot of people using that clip, not just for Blake, but for the entire defense. And I'm saying either he's that good or he's not. But you can't have it both ways. My take is he's that good. I'm starting to warm up on the idea, and y'all know my stance on Kroma was not that I didn't think he could be a good player, was to just not put too much on his plate too early. And I'm starting to warm up, and I think regardless of if I warm up to the idea or not, it's kind of becoming apparent that Kroma's going to be a very big part of this offense year one as a freshman. Like Cam Davis. Now, he's more explosive than Cam, but he has a college-made body already. Kroma looks like a college player. He's not a player that needs to redefine his body. He's not one of these skinny running backs like Toafili was coming out of high school, or even like a Sam Singleton, right? He's not one of these little guys. I mean, you're talking about a well-built kind of machine. You feel me? And I think I said it on the last stream, if he can pass pro, then he's going to be on the field a lot more than even I expected. So you can't have it both ways. And I'm not saying he's this player, but I brought up Adrian Peterson. Do you think Oklahoma, Adrian Peters' freshman year, when he was wrecking shop in practice before the season started, do you think Oklahoma fans were going, man, our defense just sucks? Or was Adrian Peterson just Adrian freaking Peterson? You feel me? And I think that's what you're seeing with Kroma. And I'm not saying he's going to be Adrian Peterson. I think Adrian Peterson as a freshman, I think ran for 1,900 yards. Somebody want to I can fact check it right now. I just don't feel like it. Somebody can I think as a freshman, AD ran for like 1,900 yards, if I'm not mistaken, as a freshman. I'm not saying that he's that. I promise you I'm not. But I think he got a guy who's going to play a lot and play early for you. And I think you gotta. I think you gotta give respect to Kroma, and I don't even think. Here's the bigger thing for me, or not the bigger thing, but here's another point to make. I don't even think you can make that much out of that clip for Blake Nicholson on the other end of it. I get it. You got owned in that clip, but it's football, guys. People are going to win and lose reps. It's sports. Somebody gets dunked on. The best shot blockers of all time have all been dunked on. Somebody's going to miss a shot. Michael Jordan has had people make shots in his face. He's considered one of the all-time perimeter defenders. Same thing with Scottie Pippen, because might be considered the best perimeter defender of all time. Scottie Pippen, you don't think anyone ever made a shot in his face? Of course they have. Again, I'm not saying Blake Nicholson is all-time anything. I'm simply saying in sports, you win and lose reps. That's a good look for Kroma. It is a bad look for Blake, but you can't take that one clip, in my opinion. You're out here to win going now. You can't take that one clip and just all the way go, yeah, Blake sucks. Get him out of here. Tony White has praised Blake Nicholson for the most part. And if you believe in Tony White, and if you see the recent, we talked about CONRAD HUSSEY earlier, he isn't just throwing out false praise. Tony White isn't just throwing out false praise just to throw out false praise. I don't think he names drops Blake Nicholson. If Nicholson was playing as terrible as people want to say he playing based off of 5-second clip or however long that clip was. Excuse me. So I think it's fair to give Blake give him some grace, because again, Tony White, who is a linebacker coach, I don't believe he would throw out any false praise if Blake didn't deserve it. There are linebackers that he's not mentioning. But that is one of them. He mentions Omar, he mentions Cryer, he mentions the transfers, and he mentions Blake. He even mentioned the true freshman linebacker in Pritchett, I think is his name. He even mentioned him. Again, I don't think those names get mentioned if they were just borderline average players or whatever. So I'm gonna give Tony White the benefit of the doubt. He name dropped Blake Nicholson. He said Blake's coming along nicely from where he was, and I think that's probably a fair assessment. Again, is Kroma that good? A lot of people would say he is that good. If he's that good, then guess what? That could have been Omar Graham in that clip. It probably and Omar Graham has probably felt some of that. Like other linebackers have probably felt some of that. There's another clip, because I call Kroma Captain Hook, because he throws a mean left. There's another clip where he's smacking 36, who I found out was Jaden Parrish, another linebacker. He's smacking him completely out of his way. So that's not the first linebacker that he's. Now, I'm not saying Jaden Parrish is any good. I probably isn't the guy that will end up being here in the long term. But the point is, Blake's not the first, won't be the last linebacker to feel Kroma's wrath. And I think he got a guy. I mean, a lot of people have been high on Kroma since he signed. The hype is seeming to be real. We're going to find out, because obviously y'all know who we got game one. But I think people are being a little too hard on Blake Nicholson because he lost a rep in practice. One rep, in my opinion, doesn't define Blake Nicholson. Blake is a third-year player. He's a true junior, has no red shirt. It has taken Blake a while to get accustomed. What Blake Nicholson, in my opinion, biggest issue isn't his athleticism. he probably is the most athletic backer we have. His instincts seem to lack, and maybe his strength seems to lack based off that clip. But again, this is this is Usman Kroma we're talking about. So let me see what y'all was talking about in the comment section, and get y'all's thoughts. Again, I just let's not destroy Blake Nicholson based off one clip. Kroma reminds me of a lot of James Wilder. I think the contrary. This is not a knock on Wilder, who was a beast. Wilder played running back for us because that's what he was promised. It's one of the reasons why we got him from Florida. He was committed to Florida. But all of the scouts thought he was an athlete, but all of the scouts thought James Wilder was going to be a better linebacker than running back. But he wanted to play running back like his dad. And Florida State promised him that he would play running back. I think Kroma is a more natural runner than James Wilder. I'm not going to say he's stronger than James Wilder because I got to see that first. Because we have highlights of Wilder just running through defenders and over defenders and all of that. But I think he's a more natural runner than James Wilder was. What's up, Toady? Michael Adams says, I think Blake is soft. OG and Cryer are solid. I think Blake let up a little at the end. What's up, Peter? What's the word on Cam? I haven't heard a peep about him. We'll talk about Cam here shortly. Blake shows no flashes. Shout out to Tony. Became a tribal chief. That's what I'm talking about. The tribal chief. I love it.
Clickety clank, clickety clank. The money goes into my piggy bank.
Dupree says Blake is trash. Don't argue with me about that. I can't argue with you whether Blake is trash or not. Argue with Tony White. Tony White doesn't think he's trash. So again, if you believe Tony White with all these other players, I don't know why you would all of a sudden disagree with him about that one player. You can argue with Tony on whether Blake Nicholson is trash or not. I'm not going to argue with that. Fan base is starving for football. I think all football fans are just starving for football at this point. After today, based on reports, I'm convinced offense is going to need to score 35 to a game against the top 4 teams. They might. What's up with the linebacker we got from UNC? How's he doing? I haven't heard his name. That's another. Tony White hasn't mentioned that. He's mentioned Blake. He hasn't mentioned, I think it's pronounced Lavelle or Lavallee or something like that. This was a guy that I told people when we got him. I don't know why we're pretending like because he had 9 tackles against the mighty UConn Huskies in a bowl game that he was going to – people were telling me this kid was going to come in and be the best backer on the field. He's not cracked. He's not overtaking Blake Nicholson. He's not over – you can say he's Blake Nicholson trash all you want. Blake Nicholson is getting reps over him. He's not taking reps over Omar. He's not taking reps over Juice or the 2 transfers in Herring and Thompson. I never thought he was going to play. I thought this was a guy that you were going to try to groom for the future. So to answer your question, Panama Jack, he is playing his role right now, which I think that's why they brought him in. Not to be some star-studded linebacker, but to come in and raise the floor. What happened to Rawls? I don't think nothing's happened to Rawls. I think Rawls will be probably one of your starters at DB. He's a more natural runner than Wilder and has better hands. Good point. Blake had like 50 tackles. He can tackle. Blake's not as bad as we want to pretend he is. But, you know. And Lavallee came in hurt. Did he come in hurt? Did he get hurt in that bowl game? I thought he had 9 tackles in that bowl game. When did he get hurt? Because the bowl game is what everybody's made and said he was, the next great Pilgrim linebacker. Um, and his brother committed to us this year. If he's hurt, he's hurt. I haven't heard that he's hurt, but he might very well be hurt. Do you think Tony keeps mentioning the twins to light fire under someone? I think I think Tony is praising high motor guys. I don't think. I think it's interesting that he always mentions the twins as the twins. He never mentions just one of the twins. I think that's interesting. I think it's I think it's a bit 50-50, Michael. I think he's definitely using them to probably try to gas up some of these more senior players and tell and like let them know like, hey, there's some young guys behind you who are playing with high energy, high motor, and are going to take your spot if I don't get the same energy out of you. At the same time, I mean, those twins were 3 stars, and again, stars don't matter once you get on college, but they were where they were ranked for a reason. People saw them in camps. They didn't dominate camps like that. To all of a sudden come to college and be dominating, is that an indictment on your offensive line, or did they just up their game from high school? It could be a mix of both. It could be one or the other. I think as far as your question goes, I think it's a bit 50-50. I think the Twins are playing hard. I think they're showing energy that Tony White wants. And I also think he's using them to let some of these guys like a Daniel Lyons, who we haven't heard a peep from in spring or fall camp. I think you use their names to try to get Daniel on because you need a guy like Daniel Lyons to be a part of that defensive line depth. So you're kind of using them to light a fire under him and the players like him, not just him specifically, but players like him. Many blessings, but blessings to you too. There are some of the first guys he mentioned. I think he genuinely likes them. I think he genuinely likes them too, but I also think coaches use other, I think it's a bit of a mix. I do think he genuinely likes him. I don't disagree with you, Tyler, but I also think he's using that to coach up his other players. I think Bama tried to poach Blake this past offseason. He's still very raw. No pads in camp. Things change when you actually got to put the pants on and can do some things. So, solid point from Cool Breeze. If we talk about camps and stuff, I mean, that brings us to that scrimmage. That was mentioned in the scrimmage. What's up, Gator Hater? I believe Shaheem is probably next on the chopping block. Speaking of that, I was going to get into scrimmage, but we'll talk about that, about other players. I don't think Shaheem leaves the team, but because I think you want that veteran, for all intents and purposes, right? Shaheem is a veteran. When it comes to Shaheem, this is what I believe. Because Shaheem's been here a long time, like 5 or 6 years. And I think I got a pretty good feel on the type of person/player Shaheem Brown is. I don't think Shaheem has a problem taking to the coaching. I don't think he's not playing hard. Like, I think he's out there giving it effort. I think he takes to coaching. I think Shaheem is trying. I think the problem with Shaheem is he's capped out. And he probably capped out 2 years ago, if we're being honest. We expected Shaheem to be one of the best players on defense last year. That didn't happen. Shaheem's probably capped out at this point. He was rated where he was rated to coming out of high school, like a 700. He was a low 3-star. And for the most part, has kind of outdone expectations up to this point, which is kudos to him. But they have recruited better prospects since they've gotten Shaheem. And I believe you're just at a point now where Shaheem is probably capped out. I think so. I don't think he leaves. I'd be surprised if Shaheem Brown left the team, because I don't see that in him. But I think it's very apparent that people have surpassed him and are just better football players than him, and that he's got excuse me, he's got to settle into his role on the team. That's really that's what I think is happening in the Shaheem Brown situation. I don't think it's a guy who's stubborn. I don't think it's a guy who doesn't want to do what is being asked of him. I don't think it's a guy that can't take the coaching and these other things that maybe CONRAD HUSSEY had some problem with. I think Shaheem simply is maxed out. And guys with more potential, more ability have just leaped over him on the depth chart. What's up, Zay? Brandon says it. He's a vet, but he maxed out his potential. Yeah, that's exactly what I think is happening or has happened to Shaheem Brown. I agree with that. Panama says Tony, speaking of Tony White, is type of coach, if you give maximum effort, he can deal with the mistakes. But the lack of effort will have you on the bench, and I agree 100%. We did talk about HUSSEY no longer being on the team. Talked about him. No, sir, not me. And KCS thinks, he says Shaheem is lazy. That's my opinion, based on 23 and 24. In 23, he played well, but he played opposite of Akeem Dent, who we don't give enough credit for in that back of that secondary. We give a lot. I know we talk about Ronaldo Green for good reason. We talk about Jarian for good reason. We even talk about Cypress in 23. But we don't talk about Akeem Dent enough, as he, I believe, was the glue to that secondary. And playing next to Akeem Dent, I think Shaheem actually played well in 23. It is last season where we thought Shaheem needed to take that next step, and he not only did he not take the next step, it looked like he, was a step behind it. But he said, dude always ends up on the ground and always has his hands out to help get up and didn't even make a play. So based on those things, KCS thinks Shaheem is a lazy bum. Dupree says, put Shaheem back on field goal block team. And that might be a role for him. Special teams will definitely be a role for Shaheem. He won't be a starter in that secondary, but I definitely think Shaheem will be on the special teams for what that's worth. Now, that's probably not what Shaheem wants to hear at this point in his career. But if he stays, and I believe he will stay, he's your gunners. He's your guy on the punt return that is either blocking or on punt coverage, who's a gunner, kickoffs gunner, field goal, could be a guy rushing, trying to get blocks. We know Shaheem can block some punts, block some field goals, rather. So I think a special team specialist could be in Shaheem's, it could be where he's looked at to make an impact. Shaheem may have benefited from a system of talented players on defense 2 seasons ago. He was nowhere last season. Then again, nobody showed up last season. Absolutely. And Dupree says, Dent was always in the right place. That Ty Simpson kid got some wheels. We'll see. And Tyler says, we got way more out of Shaheem than I think any of us ever expected. And that's a good point, too, for better or worse. I mean, if you told us when we got Shaheem, based on where he was at a high school, if you told any one of us that, you would get, about 2 or 3 years of, starting caliber safety stuff out of him, you probably would have took that. So, again, I think Shaheem just has maxed out his potential, and other guys are just better than him. And that's okay. It's okay. That's what's supposed to happen at Florida State. You're supposed to get guys who are you're supposed to over recruit. That's what's supposed to happen, right? So I'm all for it. Island Boy was good. Shaheem was ranked 992 nationally. There you go. I actually gave him credit. I think I said that he was ranked in the 700s. He was ranked lower than that. So shout out to Brandon for looking that one up. I started at a major college, getting a degree, and he's hit his ceiling. I say it's a win-win. I agree, man. And that's the kind of comment that I appreciate that type of comment. Because I know we always want the 3 stars with heart. I know that. We always, give me a 3 star that plays hard over that 5 star, that whatever, whatever, whatever. But those 3 stars are usually 3 stars for a reason. Some of them some of them are better than what they're ranked. A Braden Fisk would come to mind. I'm not sure where he was ranked, but I'm pretty sure he was not a highly coveted player coming out of high school. He ended up at Central Michigan, so that kind of tells you that he wasn't very highly coveted. And sometimes, man, guys just hit their peak, man. They just hit their potential, and he was 992 for a reason. And again, you've got plenty of play out of him. You've got blocked field goals out of him. You've got plays out of him. The man's been here. At the end of the day, for the 992 player in the country at the time he came out, you would argue that Shaheem Brown has had a successful career. But FSU was at a different point. They need to bounce the hell back, and Shaheem just might not be in the cards for that bounce back. What's up, Sestino? Since Adangbe brought it up, special teams. We got Deuce taking reps at punt return. Gus must be hyped on all the backup receivers. Yes, it was a dumb when we had Keon doing it too. Yeah, I don't know if I like the idea of Deuce Robinson, 6'6" receiver returning punts. Man, it's like we can't find a punt returner to save our damn life. Can Jalen Lucas not return punts? I'm pretty sure he can. Maybe that's just some extra work in case I think Jalen Lucas will be your punt returner. So maybe that is just one of those cautionary things because you do got to get other guys in there to practice. Jalen Lucas last year, season ended, right, because of an injury. So you may very well just have other guys taking some reps in case of injury. I don't think we'll see Deuce Robinson returning punts this upcoming year. I don't believe so. But we'll see. Peter Ward also returned punts. What was dumb about it? I don't think it was dumb. I can understand why maybe you think Keon doing it. Even then, I think Keon had some decent returns. Dumb is a strong word. Of course, Peter Ward is dynamic. Rashard Green was pretty good at it. So I don't have a problem with your top receiver doing it if they can do it, if they do it. I'm just not sure Deuce is the guy to do it. That's just me, though. Our best receiver is Squirrel. Maybe. I think Lucas will be. Again, I think they're just working in some guys. You got to use this time to work in some guys. What's up, Mighty Noel? He says, what up, Polk? All I can say is I don't know what we're going to do overall this year, but I do believe we're better than last year, and that isn't saying much. I was about to say, because you can't be too – unless you're talking about a one-win team or a no-win team, yeah, you can't be too much worse than 2-10. So they better be better than last year. That is very low standard to have to exceed. So for Mike Norvell's sake, I'll just keep it at that. They better be better than 2-10. Hell, for Mike Norvell's sake, they better be better than like a 5-win team. But that's neither here nor there. We'd love to see Jamie in his Tony White defense. Coach would have loved him. He was a dog. For those underappreciated, in my opinion. Did the same thing with Deuce. We've got Jalen. Sam. Sam's definitely going to be doing kickoffs. I don't know if they'll put Sam at punt return, but I know Sam will definitely be doing kickoffs. Fisk was ranked 1,590 coming out of high school as a 6'3", 240-pound offensive guard. Crazy. Now you think about that for a second, and think how much he grew. He went from 6'3", 240. That means he grew 2 more inches in college. He got to 6'5", 300. So he put on over 60 pounds and grew a couple 2 inches. So it's not a surprise. Based off the rankings, it's an absolute shocker. But then when you consider the growth spurt he had, the amount of weight and muscle he put on, yeah, man. Danzy is a guy that got some mention. That we'll use all of this and we'll pivot into the scrimmage because Danzy's been getting some mention as a young wide receiver that is kind of starting to put it together. As we know, Danzy made the change from from running back to receiver. I guess they want to use that track speed on the perimeter, and his name has been mentioned as someone who's kind of putting it together. I did see the Jimbo interview. Shout out to Freddie. Shout out to Freddie. Good interview. What up, Ed? It looks like LaWayne McCoy is hurt. We saw him on crutches and with like a boot on. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. No, I would say it's not a good thing. How long is he hurt is a better question. As a guy who was competing with Boggs for that third wide receiver spot, now it kind of looks like it's all Boggs at this point with LaWayne McCoy being hurt. But before the injury, it was all the talk. It was LaWayne McCoy and Boggs were looking pretty good as a 1-2 punch for like that slot receiver. That slot position. Hurtsberry was looking all right in scrimmages with the second string, whatever it takes to get BG off this team. So Brock Glenn has been hurt. But I will say I agree with you, not necessarily getting Brock Glenn off the team, at least not yet. I will agree that if Sperry has continued to take these second team reps, you're going to probably going into the season with him as your second string quarterback. That might have some cause for concern if TC gets hurt. Because his, true freshman, man, it is what it is at that quarterback position. I just don't trust it. But you can 100% lose your position to injuries. And I think Brock Glenn at one point was the certified second stringer just off of experience and these things. And you don't want to put Sperry out there too early. But if you can't get on the field and actually practice, well, you're just going to lose that spot. I would say Brock Glenn is in danger if he has not already lost that spot. What's up, Antoine? So TC was reported of throwing an interception and then responded by leading the offense to 2 touchdowns. I saw a clip of the interception. I'm pretty sure most of you have. He threw it to Jeremiah Wilson. I also saw another clip, unrelated to that, where he threw a pretty bad interception. Now, I don't want to take too much off of that clip, but my issue with the play isn't how he threw the ball, isn't that he even threw the interception. It's that he threw the ball, period. He's running to the outside. He's scrambling to the right, out of bounds, looking like he's going out of bounds. It looked to me like both DB and receiver stepped out of bounds. Wide receiver obviously gives up on this play at the end there. DB comes back from out of bounds to intercept the ball. My problem is you have to teach TC to not – that is such a low percentage throw, rolling right and throwing back to the left. You are better off your Thomas Castellanos. Just tuck it, get 1 to 2 yards. If you can't get any yards, you're out of the box. Just toss the ball out of bounds, live for another play. That is the stuff that you have to get at. You have to get that out of that has to be eliminated from his repertoire. He can not think that throws. He doesn't have the arm talent. And I don't even care if you have the arm talent. Those are just never smart throws. It is never smart to roll right, roll left, to roll one way and then throw back across your body. I mean, even the number 1 pick, you saw Cam Ward do that in Miami a couple times and get picked off. Those are the dumbest throws you can do. And I get it, right? That is just I get it. That's gamesmanship. Like he's trying to make a play, but that's where the coaching like has to come in and just tell him like, don't even make that throw. Live to play the next down, right? Don't even make that throw. We don't need that throw, right? That throw. And the one defense I'll give the TC on that play is that the wide receiver I thought quit at the end of that route. Where if he had continued to run to the back of the end zone, the defender's probably not even in a position to make that interception. But he didn't throw it to where the receiver was supposed to be running or where he maybe on a scramble drill to help his quarterback out should have ran. He threw it to where the receiver was, who was standing still and stagnant. And, of course, the DB's able to undercut that. At the end of the day, man, just don't make that throw. That's just me. Just don't make that throw. Just don't take the sack. Toss the ball out of bounds. If you're able to, again, tuck the ball, get a couple yards, get some positive yards, 1 or 2 yards. I don't care if it's 1 or 2, and live for the next play. Throwing back across your body, I don't care what level of ball you're playing. Any coach will tell you, bad, right? Don't do that. I don't care if you've seen Aaron Rodgers do it. Certain guys we've seen be able to get away with stuff like that, right? Pat Mahomes and guys, but TC's not Pat Mahomes. Hell, TC's not Jordan Travis. Don't make those plays. Those are the things that I think are going to be very frustrating with Castellanos. Again, you love his confidence. You love that he's a gamer. But you also have to be you also have to play within your ability. Don't do too much. Don't do too much because that ends up in catastrophic plays. Like in a game, right? That's a catastrophic play because it looked like they were in the red zone on that clip. Now, this clip is taken from the back end zone. It looks like the camera's in the end zone farthest away from them. So I couldn't tell exactly what it looked, but the throw was in the end zone. It looked like they were in the red zone. Like you essentially taking points off the board in that position. So you just don't do that. What are y'all's thoughts on? I'm pretty sure everybody's seen that clip. What are your thoughts on Castellanos throwing that pass? It's just practice. You don't want to make too much of it. But again, we're talking about a guy who, at his best, is one of the lower-rated passers, and that's not me hating on him. That is a fact. That is a statistical fact. That he is one of the lowest rated passers in terms of accuracy in all of college football. Will we see Cam at the Wildcat? I don't know. I don't think we'll see Cam in the Wildcat. I think Kroma has mentioned that he's the one that's taking the Wildcat snaps and that he's developed a relationship with Luke Pettenbaum because he's taken so many Wildcat snaps. I think you're going to see Kroma doing Wildcat. I don't think you're going to see Cam. Dupree says Jordan Travis did it at the LSU game. I mean, if you want to point out one throw where that works, we can point out 100 that, again, end up catastrophically. 1 out of 100 is 1%. Don't do it. Again, it's a low percentage play. Don't do it. We are going to be pissed off at some of TC Stoves this year. That's just what it is. I think so too. TC can't play hero ball here. It's unfortunate. He may feel the need to. That's the unfortunate part about it, Antonio. I would agree with you that he can't play hero ball, but he may. We're going to see. He may need to. But we'll see. Talk about when Arnaud, when the freshman got the pick. Yeah, I'm talking about that one. Saw that too. Not a good. And that's I'm simply talking about the decision making. I'm not even judging the throw. I know TC doesn't have an NFL caliber arm anyway. Like Thomas Castellanos will not be drafted in the NFL. He's not Kyler Murray. I'm bringing up Kyler Murray because he's a quarterback similar to his stature. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not any of these other guys that are small quarterbacks. He is not an NFL player. He doesn't have to be for you to have a successful season. He has to be a good college football player. But you got to eliminate that decision. That is not, again, that's just rolling right, throwing back left. That's a no-go. JT used to and just shovel the ball out about. That's what he should, in my opinion, in that play. Just toss the ball at that point. Toss the ball out to bounce. Let's move on to the next play. Granted, I don't know. Somebody brought up a decent point on social media. That particular play, you don't know if that's a fourth down type of, like, you don't know what situation they're running. So maybe that's a fourth and whatever, just to see how we execute in a fourth and goal or something like that, where you can't pick up the first and they're going for it. And so he just felt, you can't just shovel the ball out of bounds at that point. So you don't know what situation they're running, right? That's a major defense point to that clip. We don't know what the situation was. So if it is a fourth and goal and you got to make a play, it makes more sense why you would do that. Still don't want to see it, but it makes more sense. Sounds like Cam Ward QB. Yeah, didn't he get coached by? Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think he did some work with Cam Ward's QB coach this offseason. If he's teaching that, then yeesh, y'all might want to get y'all money back. I'm hoping our O-line is so physical we establish the run game after game and use TC's arm sparingly to get W's. I asked a couple weeks ago, and I'll ask again, what is that Tony Tokar's done exactly? Hey, man, and I think I answered you a couple weeks ago. I'm all for getting Tony Tokar's out of here at this point. All for that. What I will say about Panama, brought up the O-line. I see a Dane Bay talking about the O-line here. Always talking about the defense, actually. But I think it's been said, I'll co-sign on it. I think our O-line is healthy. I think you got a pretty decent O-line. TC, because he is what's up, Jeff? Because he is the type of player that he is, his instincts are going to be to make plays with his feet. So some of that stuff, and I think Antoine mentioned it earlier, some of this stuff, man, we're just going to have to accept. And there's going to be plays that TC does that it's going to be a double-edged sword. There are going to be plays, I think, that you get from Thomas Castellanos where you're going to do one of these. You're going to throw your hands up, shake your head, scratch it, be like, what the hell? Then there's going to be plays like, oh, he pulled that one out. The key is to manage those, right? The key is to manage those. That's just the way he plays, so you're going to have some of that. Do you not do the negative plays are going to happen. Can we make sure the negative plays don't happen in crucial situations? Can we make sure the negative plays don't happen when there's a chance for points on the board? We can't afford to take points off the board, right? So that is just going to come, I think, with the nature of the beast. Can they get him to reel it in and pick his spots? Again, somebody talked about Tony Tokar's. Man, might be up to him. Send JP to Cancun with Tony. Hoping for a 90 Cowboys O-line. Yeah, you can probably keep hoping for that one. Clean music lover. 90s Cowboys O-line is crazy. Can I just get like 2022 O-line? If I can get 2022 O-line, 2022 could run the damn ball. 2022 O-line, we could line up and run the ball. Give me 2022's O-line, I'll be happy. With Gus Malzahn, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I feel Bama's going to run more than pass. That could be a very quick game. That game might not be that long. If Bama decides to come out and just try to run the ball, I know Florida State's going to want to run the ball. That could be a game that goes by very fast with both teams prioritizing a lot of runs. We'll see how it plays out. So the positive is that they did mention that TC did lead the team to 2 positive drives where he got 2 touchdowns. So the sort of, how am I trying to say this? What came out of the scrimmage, it seems like, is that the offense had a better showing than the defense in the second scrimmage. Now, I don't know what to take from that, because I've been pretty bullish on Tony White's defense. But if you listen to the interviews, Tony White started that interview on fire. He did not mince his words. He did not hold back his punches. That tells me that he was not happy with what he saw, which goes to what's being reported. The offense got the better of the defense. Usually this time of the year, most of the time people are, teams are always reporting, the defense is a step ahead of the offense because the offense has to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know what you take from that. The fact that it does seem like Tony White is, I don't think it's a coincidence. On a Monday, Tony White comes out. He's not happy. He's calling players out, not specifically, but in general terms, like he's pretty pissed at the guys that are not showing up. And then on Tuesday, CONRAD HUSSEY has left the team. And again, the reports of the offense getting the better of the defense. I don't know. Maybe that defense has a little bit more growing pains than expected. We will see. I got a super chat. KCS with the $9.99. Shout out to KCS. He spoke, are you buying this Tony White frustration? To me, it just sounds like, don't make me look like a fool. I can call your name when I call your name for the Bama game. I buy into it. Tony White, I think he's genuinely mad. Tony White is night and day from Adam Fuller. I don't think what you're getting from Tony is fugazi or fake. And I think he's a more hard-nosed type coach. FSU hasn't had here in a while. Since probably specifically speaking defense, so probably Pruitt and Stoops. You haven't had that type of coach. I think these guys I think that is FSU's DNA, right? I think that's the DNA, is that type of defensive coordinator. That is what Mickey Andrews was. We all talk about Bobby, and rightfully so. Bobby was the head coach. But it's like Jordan and Pippen, man. Bobby needed Mickey. And while Bobby was, had the quotes and was the media darling to some degree, and the dadgummits and all of that stuff, and the hat, Mickey was the spitting in the face, cussing out. Like, Mickey was that. I'm not saying Tony White is that. I don't necessarily know this early. Tony White seems like he is not afraid to let a player know how he feels. And if he feels like you're not living up to whatever standard he has for you, again, I don't think it's fake. I don't think what Tony White's putting out there is fake. I don't feel that way. Especially, again, with the dismissal. And I'm calling it a dismissal is probably unfair. I don't know the circumstances or how that conversation went. But with CONRAD HUSSEY all of a sudden off the team, I think that's a message. Tony White ain't a clown like Fuller, so there you go. But again, thank you, Casey, for that super chat.
Yeah, more money, yeah, more money, yeah.
What's up, James? I don't usually want the defensive coordinator to be all smiles, all right? Because that's not, you're a Florida State fan, and that's not what. Well, depending on how old you are, but if you're a little bit older, that's what you grew up on. You didn't grow up on, Mickey Andrews was not the media dog. Again, Mickey wasn't the friendly coach. Bobby was that, and I'm not saying Bobby was friendly with the players all the time, but as far as the media optics, Bobby was, again, the quotable coach, the grandfather figure. Mickey was the old grandpa on the porch saying, don't, if you've been in the military, Mickey's the old sergeant major that's saying, don't walk on my grass. Like that was Mickey Andrews. No Sir Not Me thinks it's concerning if the defense is behind the offense at this point, and it could be. Grill Master says, whoops, okay. Even if the defense is playing well, that DC should still sound upset about something. I don't disagree. And again, No Sir Not Me says, Tony White's not a clown like Adam Fuller. Shout out to Adam Fuller. I think he's coaching in the NFL right now. So shout out to Adam Fuller, man. I forget which team he's coaching for in the NFL, but I'm pretty sure he's in the NFL. Noel Sage was good. So also some stuff coming from the scrimmage. Let's talk about that running back room for a little bit. We talked about Kroma already and how he's looking like the real deal. It looks like Kroma, again, I've been consistent of Kroma not being the starter. And from what I understand, Sawchuk is right there. That's probably your 1-2 punch. I think Roydell is the third running back, though I think Roydell will get some opportunities against Bama because that's his old team. And from what the staff continues to say offensively is that Roydell is very consistent, has done everything they've asked him to do, and they're going to give him his opportunities. But as far as the game changers, probably Sawchuk, probably Kroma's 1-2 punch. Two different backs, so that works. The guy that's being left out of conversation is Cam Davis, right? It's Cam Davis. Now, what does that mean for Cam? Well, Cam is good friends with Kroma, so I don't foresee Cam leaving. And we watched Roydell last year, not too impressed. We'll see maybe with the weight loss if he's more explosive. But I think we all will agree that no one was impressed with Roydell last year, right? So I think that extra running back spot is open for Cam. But Cam's not very explosive, or at least he wasn't. I've said this about Cam Davis a bit now. He looks the part, right? He's short, built like a bowling ball. Almost reminds you of a Maurice Jones-Drew in terms of the way he's built. Small, compact, and stocky. But he ain't no Maurice Jones-Drew. At least as a freshman, he wasn't. We'll see in his sophomore year how that turns out. Right now, though, I would put him fourth on that depth chart. He's behind Kroma and Sawchuk for sure, and I think he's behind Roydell because I think Roydell's going to be in the mix. At least early in the season, Roydell will be in the mix. Now, does Kroma get to the point where you can't keep him off the field? The hope is, sure. Again, the hope is that Kroma is cut from the Leonard Fournette cloth. Hell, the Dalvin Cook cloth. The Adrian Peter, freshmen that can't be denied is what you're kind of hoping, right? That's what you're hoping from Kroma. That's what I'm hoping from Kroma. But I don't think Cam is on the same level of the guys mentioned before him. That's just me. KC says, I agree. Our DC should be hard on the players. I just don't buy he's really that upset after the scrimmage, too. My guy listened to like 25 names. So he name dropped. And again, we talked about this earlier. He name dropping guys that he is happy with. But just because my rebuttal to that, Casey, would be just because you are pleased with the effort of individuals does not mean you're pleased with the total effort of a defense. Right? I can point out that Daryl Jackson is playing great, or James is playing great. At the same time, be unhappy that my defense as a whole isn't playing up to a standard. And by name dropping certain guys positively, you're giving the guys that you're talking about that you're not name dropping, but that you're speaking like in general terms, like get it together or you won't play. You're giving them something to look at and say, follow this if you want to be on the field for me. I think that's how you coach, right? That it's one thing to tell people to do something, but you have to give them an example of what you're looking for. And I think that goes into when he's happy with certain players, one, it boosts their confidence to keep them going. And it gives other guys a target, real dogs, real individuals that are hungry. It gives you a target. Like one of the things that I think has changed in modern day sports, not just football, but just modern day sports, is this whole lovey-dovey attitude that teams are made of nowadays. Even somebody mentioned the interview with Jimbo. Go watch Jimbo Fisher's interview with Freddie. If you haven't, great interview. Brought a tear to my eye. I would take Jimbo back in a minute, but that's a whole nother conversation. With Jimbo Fisher, and even Freddie mentioned it, the offense and the defense did not have kumbaya. They did not like each other Monday through Friday. They were not friends. They didn't hang out. Position groups sure hung out. But those guys went to war on the practice field. And it was they went to war. Like they fought. It wasn't – and I think too much in today's sports is everybody's just so lovey and that's my guy. And I'm not saying don't be a team. I'm not saying don't – but you have to have a target. And even within positions, like – you have to look at a guy and say, I'm taking your spot. We can be friends, but on that field, I'm trying to take your job. Like you have to have that type of cutthroat attitude. And I think that's a long answer to your statement here, KCS, but I really think that is what you're trying to instill if you're Tony White. Like these are the guys you need to be trying to take their job. These are the guys, if you're in a position group and I name 3 DBs and you don't hear your name, there's a problem. And you need to be targeting one of those guys to get your name mentioned. I take it like that. Mr. H says, is Bama really that good, though? I mean, didn't they lose to Vandy last year? Isn't last year's team better than this year's team? My problem with that statement, Mr. H, is sure. We can go off of last year and say all we want. Oh, Bama lost to Vandy. But then the rebuttal to that, if you're a Bama fan, and I'm no Bama fan, but my rebuttal would simply be, bro, you went 2-10. Who are you to say is Bama that good? You went 2-10. If we're going to bring up last year, then you are within your right to bring up 2-10. So let's let the Vandy game go because that has no bearing on this year. Just like 2-10 has no bearing on this year. We can't keep bringing up Vandy. Oh, they lost to Vandy. Oh, they lost to Vandy. Mom, you lost to Memphis. You lost to everybody. You lost to everybody. You lost to Memphis. You lost to SMU. Name a team Florida State lost to them with the exception of Cal and whatever was it, North Alabama, whatever team they beat. You only beat one D1 football team. So when we talk about Bama, I don't want to bring up the Vanderbilt stuff because that's irrelevant. Because let me ask you a question. Would Florida State have beat Vanderbilt last year? I think we know the answer to that question. No Say says Cam ain't leaving. Remember, Sawchuck and Roydell leaving after this year. I thought Sawchuck had 2 years. Does he only have one? That's a good point. I know Roydell has 1 year. I thought Sawchuck had 2, but you might be right. He might only have 1. So Cam's going to be in the shoot next year for sure. Grillmaster says a lot of running backs are going to be leaving after the season. You think so? I think that running back room is going to be wide open. I mean, other than Kroma, obviously. But Cam, Singleton, he might look for an opportunity given that he's also down on the depth chart, though they have him on special teams. You could see Singleton. The unfortunate part about next year is I don't know what that running room looks like. Right now, you don't have a guy committed as far as running back goes. You're probably going to hit the portal extra hard in the running back room next year. I watched some of 23 highlights of Roydell. I think Holmes is on his last year, so that running back room is going to be thin. But you said I haven't seen anything to put him above Keziah. So I don't think Keziah must have been flirting with Atkins' old lady. Maybe. They're better than us, LOL. Whether or not they're any good is a different story. Makes me wonder why he wasn't a 5-star. Maybe his top speed wasn't high. If you're talking about Kroma, there's a lot of things that could have played into that. Maybe he doesn't have the top end speed. And Dupree says that's why they paid him. He's going to be running back 1 before the season ends. Cam should go ahead and move to that H-back role. He could be damn good in Malzahn's scheme in the role if he works on his hands. You got to be able to catch the ball. And we've already kind of seen that Cam doesn't have the best hands. So you got to work on the hands for sure. Don't even get. Oh man, you brought up a name there. Jaquez freaking Patrick looked like Greg Jones and ran like Jaquez Patrick, man, one of the few 230-pound legit backs that I used to watch and get taken down with shoestring tackles. I used to be so pissed watching Jaquez. I'm not even gonna lie to you. What's up, Brandon? Mr. A says, I just hate how they glaze the hell out of them on every other sports pod. All I'm saying is, but I get where you're coming from. Well, Bama's Bama, whether you like that or not. And I know that's not the answer we want to hear, but Bama's always going to get they're Bama. They're the premier team in the SEC. They do have. Let's not pretend like they don't have talent, right? They have talent, so they're going to get the hype. They're 100% going to get the hype. No says he has 2 years if he gets that waiver, but ideally he's had injury problems. So if he gets any kind of draft grade, he's gone. If he has a good year and he can get a draft grade, you're right. My favorite position on this team, the weakest position. Good question. My favorite position on this team is DBs. I think I've been consistent with that, which is, for some, might be crazy to say because there's a lot of questions. But I believe the talent level in that room, people will emerge. I believe people will emerge. You have too much talent. And Pat Surtain, if we got any faith in him, if you got any faith in the new safety, you've got too much talent at DB. You've recruited that position group specifically better than any position group on your team. That has to be my favorite position. I know that we don't know necessarily who the starters are, but I'm pointing that to just it being highly competitive. The weakest position? Guess. Guess. By all means, just guess what I think our weakest position is. Man, we getting rolled by Bama. Am I lying? I gave my prediction on that game already, King Cook, so I don't want to rehash it, but I'm standing by that prediction. What I think that score is going to be in that game. FSU 31, Bama 28. I wouldn't obviously I wouldn't be mad at it. Um, whew. No, it's neither one of those. I actually think our O line is solid if it stays healthy. And there's a little bit of cause for concern on the D line that we might not be as deep as I originally thought, and that's because certain guys apparently haven't stepped up. Daniel Lyons being a key name there. I still want to believe that D line figures it out. But to answer your question, it's quarterback. I think quarterback's your weakest position. You can like it, love it, or hate it. I think quarterback is your weakest position on this team. Well, I guess my only pushback to y'all clip that. Nose A5. Clip it. Out of a red solo cup. Clip it. He said it, not me. Let me go back to this comment. Whew. My pushback to this comment is I think you're getting Bama at the best possible time. They are also implementing a new coach. A new quarterback. A guy who Ty Simpson is a guy, I think he's a junior or senior. He's been at Bama for a minute now. He wasn't able to beat out Milroe, who absolutely sucked. In my opinion, I don't believe Milroe was a good quarterback. Athletic is all hell. Wasn't a good quarterback. It was. I called him a lower graded Anthony Richardson. So that just tells you what I would think of Joe Milton. So he's got this first time starter. So I think you're getting them at the right time. I don't know if you want Clemson with Cade Klubnik, who's supposed to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country this year, week one. Right? That's me. So I disagree there. I think you getting Bama. If you're going to play one of those teams early, you either wanted Bama. Well, honestly, you wanted everybody but Clemson as far as the top four teams on your schedule. I would take – you're never going to get Florida game one. But if you had a choice, with all the injuries they have going on in their camp right now, Florida would be a good pick for the first game of the season if you had to play one of the top teams. Miami, they're implementing a brand new defense. Carson Beck coming off of that Tommy John, so what does that look like? And then again, Bama's also, they got a brand new quarterback. Maybe you can catch him slipping. Maybe he takes time to get comfortable. So there's that. Clemson's probably the one team I would avoid game one. I mean, the Seminole fans and all of us want to win, but I don't see the talent. Our team could be wrong. Y'all are crazy. We maybe have a 10% chance of winning that game. Probably less. Hey, you said it. They clipped it. Now you got to live up to it, man. You said it and they clipped it. Y'all be acting like college football upsets aren't real. I don't think that. I just think people are giving their opinion, man. I think there are things you can reference. When's the last time Bama lost a game opener? Let's look it up. Because now I'm curious. These are things that you got to take into account. Some of these things are, last time Bama lost a game, a season opener. A season opener. So the last time Bama lost a season opener was in 2001 when they lost to UCLA. So you're talking over 20 years, and Bama hasn't lost. Like those things you got to take into consideration, man. Yes, upsets happen, 100%. But the same energy that you got to give a guy like Brian Kelly, who can't win a season opener to save his life, I mean, you got to give that same energy to Bama, who can't lose a season opener, right? So I think those are relevant. I think that's a relevant question. The weakest position is quarterback. I tend to think so. Agreed, Polk. Bama at game one is good. I'd rather play Bama after Kent. You would so preferably. I agree with that. You would have rather had those two cupcake teams, Kent State and Texas A&M East or whatever, before you step foot with Bama. But you also got to remember now Bama gets them some warm-up games to get Ty Simpson acclimated. So it's a I like to say a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. I can see why you said QB. If TC's injured, who we have next? Yeah, if TC gets hurt, whew, it's that's nasty. And then TC still has to play better. Like I think any way you look at it, quarterback's your weakest position on the team. Which FSU football insiders would you rather be a part of? Between War Chant and Knowles 247. $247. I'd rather be a part of 247. Lagway has been hurt. They've got multiple receivers hurt. I think I saw LJ McCray got banged up. Now, I don't know if all those injuries are like serious. But again, Florida's dealing with some injuries. If they linger into the first game of the season, that's a team that you would want to play. My 3-year-old stole my phone. All right, man, you say what you want. Well, you got to make your 3-year-old do it then. I don't know what to tell you. They clipped you. Canes for life came in here showing some love. Shout out to the Hurricane fans. Says, what's up, Polk? I'm liking everything I'm seeing coming out of camp with my Canes. That's good. Good to hear. Not really, but good. I'm glad you liking what you're seeing. There's a new rule over here. I don't know if you're aware of it. Since you're a Miami fan, we got to play this video. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the donation. The one nice thing I'll say about Miami is I think y'all have a legit offensive line. But I got to play this clip because that is a rule over here. So. How our trenches stack up to Bama specifically? I don't like the matchup. I'll be honest with you. How our O-line, D-line looking as a whole? Again, I think our starting O-line is good. I'm not gonna call it great. I'm not gonna go off the rails. It's just the concern with this. I think this entire team, maybe with the exception of a couple positions, is the depth. If one of your tackles goes down, are you comfortable with Lucas Simmons? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure the staff knows the answer to that. I know they would like to tell you that they are, but are you legitimately comfortable with Lucas Simmons? I think if one of the interior guys goes down, you probably have a little bit more comfortability there with the Jacob Rizzies and Andre Ottos, maybe. But man, if you get hurt at tackle, that could be a problem. D-line is kind of looking to shake up the same way. If you get a major injury to a James Williams or Daryl Jackson or McCray, You got Jenkins, and he's coming along from what we hear. He's getting healthy, and he's looking good. Tony White brought up Jaden Jones. Now, one thing I didn't talk about, but we'll talk about it here since we're talking about D-line, is Tony White made it clear in the first scrimmage he thought Jaden Jones was one of the best players on the field. I was like, that is very optimistic. Like, if you're telling me Jaden Jones has finally gotten healthy and has turned it up to that level of play, then okay, you got something. Well, he came back in the second scrimmage and said he wants to be mad at Jaden because he didn't have the same level. He didn't play at the same level, but he's also remembered that Jaden's coming back from the injury. So he was kind of passive-aggressive on Jaden in that second scrimmage where he admitted Jaden didn't play as good as he played in the first. He's attributing some of that to just finally being able to play football. Take from that what you will. I think D-line and O-line suffer some of the same issues where I think you like your starting group, but the back end of that, the guys who's going to come in and spell for your starters or just have to play in case of injury, how confident are you? I'm not sure there's a lot of confidence there from either side of the trenches in terms of that second and third group. Not even sure you have a third group, especially on the offensive line. I'm almost positive you don't have a third group. Hey, they're due. Maybe we can catch them. We can catch them slipping after 20 years. I'm with you. Maybe they're due. 100% possible. Gus has concerns about O-line. Yes. I mean, I've made that point routinely, Dupree. I am not super concerned. Of course, you want to win the Bama game, right? Of course, you don't want to get embarrassed in the Bama game. But I've said it routinely. It's about how you respond, win or lose, to the Bama game. If you win the Bama game, you cannot afford a letdown. You're not going to lose to Kent State or the other team, Texas A&M East. But you can't sleep on a Virginia, right? You got to put that team away, and I would argue put them away early. If you lose the Bama game, then that Virginia game is even that much more important, where you have to make a statement going into Miami. So I'm 100% there with you. It's all about the response to the Bama game, win or lose. If TC gets hurt, we're looking at 2017 all over. Yeah, I would argue, I would hope that if we, like you said, that team at least went to a bowl game. So my hope would be that they could still pull out a bowl game if TC goes down. TC go, let her know. Let her know. It's 2024 all over again. I talked about that earlier. Yeah, I think at this point you can't expect to see Sperry before Glenn. Though, I would say in a crucial game. However, I think, again, Kent State, if that game's 35-0 at half or something like that, you might get TC for one drive in that second half. I think they would throw Glenn in there first. And I think they would could be wrong. Do you think we're Big Ten bound? Hopefully, as long as we get out of the ACC. Who do you got winning between Miami and Notre Dame? Also, what happened to Hurricane T? I don't know what's up with T2Y. He still be on Twitter posting stuff. I don't know. Doesn't seem to go live as much. I don't know what's going on with T2Y, but I'll be watching that one. I think Miami is glossing over Notre Dame. We'll see. Notre Dame did just go to the Natty. Now, again, last year, no bearing on this year. That game would tell you something. I think if you're a Florida State fan and you pay attention to the Miami Notre Dame game, that game can potentially tell you, at a minimum, Carson Beck, how's he look, and then has that defense improved any from last year? Yes, I said that. If we pull out a week one victory, tune into the YouTube analysis, tune into Twitter Spaces. Bama fans are going to have a meltdown, and yes, they will be asking for DeBoer's head week one. Whether that's rational or not, whether that's fair or not, you can expect that. Yes, that's why I said the response is what matters. It's like they let Georgia Tech take their soul last year. They let Georgia Tech take their soul. So you have to bounce back. Win, lose, or draw, you got to bounce back. It's a rebound/rebuild season, folks. The goal is to beat the teams that are more talented than, and be competitive against the teams with more. So basically, 8-4. Because there's outside of the top 4 teams, there are no other teams on your schedule that recruit better than you. You should have a better roster than every other team on your schedule, not named Clemson, Miami, Florida, and Alabama. That's 8 wins. That's 6-2 in the ACC and 2-2 against out-of-conference opponents. I think most Florida State fans would take that. All right, Polk, I got to hear your take on why you take Jimbo back at FSU. I personally do not want to see it. Shout out to KCS with the $9.99. I got you. I'm going to tell you why.
The money goes into my piggy bank.
So this is just me personally speaking. I'm done with Mike's got this year again to turn it around and get me back on his bandwagon. But as of August 12th, 9:20 Mountain Time, 10:20 Central Time, and 11:20 Eastern Standard Time, I am off the Mike Norvell train. I'm not on it. And it really goes back to Jimbo asking for what he was asking for at the time. Now, he didn't go about it in the right way. And I'm not going to excuse it, nor can I excuse the way he left, because I thought the way he left was what's the word? Terrible, unprofessional, whatever. With that said, you now have all the things that Jimbo Fisher wanted, right? Bigger staff, stadium renovations, football only facility, like all those things that Jimbo Fisher was asking for, you now have put into place. You tell me I get Jimbo Fisher back, and you got to bring him back with a top court offensive mind, and he's going to play the CEO role where I just got to get him on the trail to go back to elite recruiting, which, regardless of what you think about Jimbo as a play caller in 2025, he can still go into any home in the state of Florida and recruit against Kirby Smart, Mario, Billy, Ryan Day, all the people that make their home down here in Florida. He can still recruit with the best of them. Give me CEO, give him who is a big time offensive coordinator. I would take that over what we have now. But we'll see how this year plays out. Maybe my tune will change by the end of the season. I hope so, Tyler. You're looking at 9-3 would be. So I haven't given a season prediction yet. I'm holding off on that to like the week of. What I will say is the expectation is about 7-5 to 8-4. Again, 8-4 means I think 7-5 is more likely. 7-5 is you are going to lose the big 4 games, and then you're probably going to drop at least one game you should. And that's just whether that's NC State on the road, like that's one of those games that Florida State always going to struggle with, an NC State on the road, or I think you get Pitt after Miami. Pitt's always a tough game to play. I think that's a game that you're going to, you may lose. You probably will lose a game you shouldn't lose just based off talent, right? Which will give you about a 7-5 record. Again, 8-4 is you beat everybody you're supposed to, but you still drop the games, the big 4. 9-3 or better. Now I'm back on the Mike Norvell train. I'm back on the bandwagon because now you pull off an upset. So you beat someone you're not supposed to beat, and you take care of all the business you're supposed to take care of. Now I'm believing that you're trending in the right direction. All that other stuff is, here's the thing. At what point do you exceed the expectations? You have not lived up to expectations, specifically last year, and you can make all the excuses you want for it. But I don't care how bad you thought the team was or wasn't last year. 2-10 is flat out unacceptable. 2-10 should never happen. Can you reverse it? Can you now exceed expectations? Has Mike Norvell ever exceeded expectations at Florida State? I would argue no. Even his good seasons in 2023, they did what was expected to be done. They didn't go out there and get Keon Coleman and have all those big offseason additions. We knew then, at least over here on this channel, I can't speak for anybody else, but I told you then, one, I had him picked for the 14 playoff, which we should have got in. And you didn't break the bank for a Keon Coleman and a Braden Fisk and a Fentrell Cypress and Jeremiah Byers, who are all like the top players at their position in the portal, to not make a run. And they exactly did that. They met expectations. Even in 2022. Again, over here, what was my preseason prediction? 9-3. They met expectations. He's never exceeded them. This will be the first year, if he can pull a 9-3 or above, that I would believe he would exceed expectations. And I can get on board with that. That's a question that we can't answer, right? Or at least I can't. What is his relationship with the boosters and things? That's probably got to mend that up. I would argue that that probably is something that you gotta fix if you're Jimbo and you really Jimbo. I will coach again. Brian Kelly better be careful because I can see Jimbo Fisher at LSU in a year or two. Brian Kelly better be careful. He better win. He better beat Clemson. He better. Brian Kelly better start getting LSU to some SEC championships or something with all the talent that they have, because I could see them making a move from him in a year or two and bringing Jimbo Fisher up over there. Tyler says, I've said it for a while, either be good or suck. We don't do this half-ass 7 wins and barely hang on to your job. I've been saying that too. I've gotten a lot of pushback for that. But I'm with you. Either be good or suck so we can fire him and move on. I think that 7 wins, again, that's what Florida State fans should expect. However, does that move the needle for anybody? I don't think it does. And now you're talking about just being stagnant. Stagnant water is the worst water you can come across. You always want to come into water that's flowing. Stagnant water will kill you. I mean, I understand the Florida State fans that don't want Jimbo because I understand how he left. And I'm not going to hold y'all to, I'm not going to I'm not here to try to convince people that Jimbo Fisher coming back is a good thing. I'm just saying I would take him back. For those that don't want him back, I 100% get why. Can we just face it? Mike Norvell is not a power forward coach. Mistakes were made in hiring him, and now it's time to move on. I mean, again, no arguments for me. We'll see how this season plays out. If Jimbo can recruit, that's about it. But that's all you need him for, is my point. We had this big discussion, I think, the last time I did a live stream. We talked about, having the horses. I just need Jimbo to bring in the horses. I need Jimbo to bring in the horses. And again, this is all caveated with the point of he's not calling the offense in 2025. I think that has passed Jimbo Fisher by. We need more OG Seminole back around the program. I don't know what that's about. Maybe they don't mess with Norvell. I think Norvell actually has done a pretty decent job of bringing back old players. I can't think of guys who have been told they can't come back or who don't come back. So Ernie Sims is on your staff. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. We've seen Peter Warwick back since Mike Norvell's been there. We see Mickey Andrews at practices. I think Mike has actually done a good job. The thing about Mike, which is I think why so many people like him, is he's done a good job of ingratiating himself with boosters, with former players. So I don't 100% agree with that take. Mike Norvell needs to win. All that shit is irrelevant when you go 2-10. That's Mike Norvell's problem. Talking about bringing back old players, that's all cool and dandy, and he's done that. Hell, they had when Mike Norvell runs the spring, we didn't do it this past spring because they didn't have a spring, but his spring games have been all the OG players playing in a flag football. Mike Norvell's done that. He's brought the old guys back. But again, it's irrelevant when you go 2-10. Win games. Win games, man. Win football games. All that shit, it doesn't matter when you don't win football games. When you don't win football games, you can bring all the OGs back all you want. People going to want you out of here. 2-10, unacceptable. That's why he's in the position that he's in. I'd argue Jimbo's last two classes at FSU were trash. I would argue that it's hard to grade those classes because of the coaching turnover. And that in a 4-year span that you're talking, FSU had 3 different head coaches. I don't care how good those classes were or weren't. The coaching turnover you had in those 4 years, you weren't going to get anything out of those 2 classes. Them boys weren't being coached or came to play for one coach, got a new coach, a year and a half in his reign, had to get another. The coaching turnover is what killed those classes, in my opinion. We all agree, really, he should have been fired sometime last year. But for whatever reason that we all know, Mike has this crazy goodwill with the admin and boosters. Dupree says Mike won 19 straight games at the Power 4 level. Stop it. He also won 2 games in the season. So it's all relevant. 19 straight and an ACC championship in 5 years is what Mike Norvell. Those are his key accomplishments. 19 straight wins and 1 ACC title in 5 years. Well, he's going into his 5th. So we'll see what he does in that 5th year. So in 4 years. Not a terrible resume. When you also add in, he's had in those 4 or 5 years, 3 losing seasons. That doesn't look very good either, does it? Right? So it's all, you got to tell the whole story with all of it. It's unrealistic. Outside of Jameis, Jimbo was mid. It's a crazy statement. I think a lot of FSU fans have some I get it. Y'all don't like Jimbo because of what happened. Got it. But to say that outside of Jameis, Jimbo Fisher was mid is ridiculous. Like Dalvin Cook and Derwin James and Jalen Rand. Like you could name Chris Thompson even before Jameis. I'm not the biggest EJ fan, but 2012 might be the most talented team to never win a national championship. So if that goes into being mid, I guess that was still a what? That's still an 11-win team in 2012. Like, I don't know, man. How many ACC championships did Jimbo Fisher win? Won a few of them. To say he was mid without Jameis is an interesting take. You could say, like, man, I can't. We can't call the man mid without Jameis when he's brought in Jameis. So it's like you have to give. It's like saying Urban Meyer without Tim Tebow sucked. Well, you have to give Urban Meyer credit because he brought in Tim Tebow. So like he gets that credit. I don't know. I get it though. We don't like. I know we don't like Jimbo. Unrealistic to think that Mike Norvell can miraculously become CEO. He doesn't have the skill set to manage high-level programs. He's at his Peter principle. I don't think PK's ever coming back. We went to intelligence because Norvell went out and got the wrong players. Money on their minds instead of winning games. There's some credence to that. They definitely went out and got some high-named players, maybe not high-caliber football players. Like Marvin Jones Jr. was a name that we all wanted. Come to find out, there's a reason why he's on his now third team in 3 years, and hopefully he does something at Oklahoma. But, yeah, they went out and got guys with name value, maybe not actually good football players. Well, yeah, and Deion. Deion's not going to be back as long as he's coaching Colorado. That's the issue. That's the issue, right? And then there's that question that I don't have an answer to. I can't tell you. The question was specifically about Jimbo, as far as what happens if you don't spin the block on Jimbo. I mean, we've named a few guys. Buddy at Syracuse. We've named some guys, but who knows? Mike Norvell hasn't shown he can develop talent and has decided to try to build a team through the portal. Shows poor decision-making. He made a New Year's Six Bowl. Man, we have some cats. Marvin Jones Jr. is nothing like his. No, he's not. Nothing like his dad. Nothing. But yeah, man, that's it. That's all I got for y'all tonight. Again, quick recap in case you missed the beginning. We went over CONRAD HUSSEY, no longer on FSU's team. This comes a day after Tony White, having a kind of passionate reaction in his interview about guys not playing up to the standard. And then a day later, CONRAD HUSSEY's no longer on the team. Wish him the best, but it won't be here. We talked about, some other guys like a Shaheem Brown, what his future may look like and what's going on with him. He's another guy that's in the doghouse, reportedly. We went over Kroma looking like an absolute beast, putting Blake Nicholson on a clip that will forever live, unfortunately for Blake. With that said, I don't think you count Blake Nicholson out just because of that one clip. But we went over that. And then, of course, we finished up with some scrimmage talk and just overall talk about, the Bama game that's looming and maybe the expectations of this year. And that's all I got for y'all tonight. As always, man, I want y'all to hit that like button before you get up out of here. Subscribe for whatever reason. If you aren't subscribed, don't know why you wouldn't be. And share the videos. Continue to share the videos, share the channel. The season's looming, so we're gonna have some big crowds in here usually when that season starts. Yep, like, subscribe, share. We'll get up out of here. Look forward to another live by the end of the week. Hopefully, we'll see how that turns out. But as always, I appreciate everybody for coming in here, showing love, showing support. It's your boy Polk over here on 863 Seminole TV. Stay classy, Seminoles, and we are out here.